Can you hear me? Can you still hear me,
Yes,
Heather?
I
Excellent.
hear
Okay, good.
you. So we'll just
Mhm.
wait and let everybody join because I know people are still joining,
Yep.
but excited to see you virtually and I can't wait to see you next month.
Person, you're going to be there in Dallas, right?
I will. I will be at the
I'm
NASDAQ
so glad. Oh,
conference.
that's fun. We'll have to have a drink or two.
Yes, I am very excited to see you and to see everybody that I get to see every year when they're there. So yeah,
Wonderful.
awesome.
So
So
great.
people are
Yeah.
still
It'll
joining
be
us, which is good. Um, we'll just give everyone just a couple minutes to make sure they get
sure.
in. Um, now we do need to do code words, so do you want
Oh,
me to just
yeah. Why don't you step in? I'm going to make sure I can share now too. Okay, good. I can. Okay, good.
yeah.
Excellent. Just making sure
So
before everybody come in. Hmm.
what I will do is I will give a code word at the beginning right before you start, and then I'll
Hmm.
do a second one right at the end when you're done before questions.
Perfect.
And then
Perfect.
that way there'll be two code words. People can email them for their CEU certificate, which we will email out to
Cool.
them.
That's
So
great.
I will let them know what the code word is before we start. Let's see if people are still joining. Just some housekeeping. Most of the questions we'll answer at the end. Marty, of course, feel free to have a look at the chat if there's something discussion wise that you want to,
Yeah,
address
you bet.
about, go ahead and go for it. Um, Welcoming Marty Stevens Hebner here from Clear Home Solutions today at our Ask an Expert webinar. Oh, Michelle, where do you send code words? I'll put my email in the chat before this is done today. Don't worry. You can email me or you can email customer success at Maxsold, um, but we'll make sure you have that info. But today we're going to be talking about letting go, moving forward, guiding families through the emotional side of downsizing. There is a lot to downsizing. There are many different sides to it, and this is one very relevant, important side to it. So, welcoming Marty here to talk about it from her experience and her expertise in the industry. And before she gets started, as I promised, I will share my first code word, which will be family. The first code word is family, and I'll put it in the chat. I wonder if I sound quiet, if I need to sit a little closer. But if Marty sounds quiet, do let us know right away because we
Yes.
want to
Yeah.
make sure that we adjust that correctly. I'm going to hand this over to Marty now, but if anybody can't hear, do put it in the chat and we'll try and fix it.
Thank you so much, Heather. It is such an honor to be here. I love working with Max Sold. Welcome all of you who are in attendance. And yeah, let's talk about letting go and moving forward, moving our clients forward, because guiding our clients and our families through that emotional side of downsizing is a massive job. For those of you who don't know me, I'm actually the president of the National Association of Senior and Specialty Move Managers. We look forward to seeing those of you who will be attending our conference in October in Dallas. So that will be wonderful. I'm also the founder and CEO of Clear Home Solutions, my senior move management company, and other things. So that's enough about me. Let's really talk about what's important here. All right, bear with me for a moment while I share my screen with you. There we go. All right. So let's get down to this. Uh is my There we go. Okay, it's cooperating now. You know Zoom, sometimes it's a little funky. All right. So when we're talking about downsizing, it can be for moving, those huge transitions, aging in place where people need to adjust their home, reorganize it, downsize, sometimes do some remodeling like stair lifts or ramps so that they can age in place. And sometimes it's after somebody has passed away. And so you're working with a client, an executor, or the adult child, clearing out the home for sale or lease. And the trick here, in over 12 and a half years of shepherding clients through this whole process, The number one thing I've learned is that downsizing is as much, if not more, about emotional logistics as it is about practical ones. Because this whole project, this downsizing project, represents a milestone for the entire family. They're overwhelmed by it because of all the tasks involved, by the upheaval of it all. And then they have all those resulting emotions just bombarding them from every direction. The smartest thing, though, that they have done is that they have hired a professional. They have hired you to guide them. But we all have to keep in mind that each of these moves, if a move isn't managed carefully and reasonably, it can literally split a family apart. And of course, we don't want that to happen. So this is not about packing boxes. I mean, that is a skill that's needed, but that's also a skill that anyone can learn. It's a task. I mean, honestly, with computer coding, you can learn how to computer code, take classes and stuff. But with this, you're guiding families through loss, through their memories, and often, as we know all too well, some conflict. So, what's really important here is compassion and empathy. Those are the hard skills. Those are the hard skills because compassion and empathy can't be taught. You can't teach somebody that. Maybe with a lot of therapy over time, they can kind of develop it. But if you're not, somebody doesn't have it, you can't teach them in that moment. And honestly, when I'm hiring, the first thing I look for in a potential employee is empathy. I need to know that for certain because they're going to be dealing with the emotional weight of stuff. And that's heavy duty, as so many of you know. So, you know, the thing itself is just a thing, but there's so much that it's embedded with. We want to do a little poll here. We're going to get a little interactive with this presentation. So, if we can see our first poll, please. So, when people struggle to let go of items, do I need to stop sharing for this?
Nope. I'll get it up here
Okay.
now.
Oh, great. Perfect. Thank you, Cesar. There we go. I think, can you see it on your screen? Everybody see it on their screens? So here's the thing. When people struggle to let go of items, what do you think? What have you encountered? What do you think drives it most often? So pick one. Is it the memories that are attached to it, the stories? Is there something about their identity and their self-image that's attached to it? Is it about how much it costs, the value of it? Or do they want to pass it on? Oh, actually, only one choice. So pick one of those, please. Would love to see what you're encountering out there. I love finding out things like this because, mind you, I hear from my wonderful colleagues in my company, but, we're just one company here in Los Angeles. So I'd love to find out what else is going on out there. Okay, how are we doing? We getting near ready to close it? What are our results? Let's see. Yeah, it hits the memories. Oh, interesting. 0% wanting to pass it on. Oh, that's fascinating. And identity, self-image, value, they're sort of the same, but yeah, it's the memories that are attached. Okay, that is great to know. Thank you for that. That's wonderful. And that doesn't surprise me because the first thing that these things are embedded with are memories and the stories that go with those memories. The sentiments, those heavy emotions that people carry with them, and their identity. Those souvenirs that came from a certain trip. They remember going on that trip, and these are the souvenirs that remind them and show people that they were there. Uh, that's a lot of weight you're contending with. And the thing is, you're kind of guessing at what the weight might be and exactly lies behind it. There's an entire web of attachment. And somehow you and we all have to ferret out its architecture, that web. So grief becomes a part of downsizing in these instances. It's because at this later life downsizing, it could be for a move, aging in place, or someone's passed away. It represents some sort of ending, just like a divorce is an ending, or the final kid moves out of the house. That's an ending. These are tectonic shifts in our lives, and they're kind of frightening. And also, no matter how many people you're surrounded by, you can feel really lonely. So letting go of something can feel like they're losing a part of themselves, the memory of it, or a part, or if somebody has passed away, that they're losing a part of that person. So these are vital things to keep in mind now as you approach starting to work with a client. So how do we get them started? Well, you've probably done a consultation with them and you have an idea, a vague, a small idea of what items might be really important to them and what might not be as important. I always think of starting with things that seem easy, but here's the first thing. Forget spark joy, please. Not everything has to spark joy. What I talk to my you can tell how I feel about that. We can I always talk to my clients about that they should focus on their favorite things and their most useful items. A bunch of forks, they may not be my favorite thing, but oh, they come in handy at mealtime. So these are useful things. So start with things that might seem easy and see if you can make some easy headway that way. You can also start to get a feel for what their mindset is by doing this for even a little while. Get an idea of how they're thinking and above all, how they're feeling. So let's talk about early resistance. Now, in that early period, you might get through a lot. More likely, you'll get through a little before hitting up against the first roadblocks. And please keep in mind that resistance isn't an emotion so much as pardon me. I can say this. Resistance isn't an emotion so much as it's a symptom of something. It's how people push back against whatever it is they're feeling. And your job is to figure out what it is. So, is it fear? Certainly. Fear is a big deal. Grief? It could also be fatigue. They just might be tired. And more frequently, it's something else. Talk about those memories. So, resistance isn't the problem, it's the signal. Something is I can't talk today. I'm so sorry. Something is bubbled up from the deep within them, the deep ocean within them. And you need to help them, instead of playing tug of war, find a way to help them shake hands with whatever it is that they're feeling. They're on the defensive, but at this point, you probably can't be sure why. What's coming up is it's self-protection, it's self-preservation. Here's an example. So let's say, and I've had this happen, where somebody won't let go of a pencil, a well-worn pencil. The eraser is only about half there. It's about half as tall as it used to be, but for some reason they have to keep it. Well, if they're really resisting, then say, okay, because it's a small thing. It's not like a big armchair. Say, okay, let's definitely keep that. Let's set that aside. How are you doing? I know this is so hard. This is what I do. These are the things that I'll say. How are you? I know this is hard. I don't know about you, but I need to stretch and get up and stretch, take a breath. Are you thirsty? Do you need a break? Check in with them so that they will check in on how they're feeling. And hopefully by kind of dealing with that, whatever that memory is that's attached to that pencil, get them talking about not only that immediate need to keep that, but also what's the larger issue that's driving it. Are they terrified of moving to assisted living? I literally had one client say to me, I feel like I'm moving to the place I'm going to die. And I think that's kind of a subconscious thought, sometimes conscious, sometimes subconscious thought going on in people's minds. But let's go back to that pencil. The pencil could just be fatigue. It could be that fear of being, much closer to the end of their lives than to the beginning and being aware of that. It could also be that that pencil was the last thing their 19-year-old son used to write a note to them before he got in his car, went out, and was killed in a car accident. So sometimes it's something very specific. And so the idea is to get to what that is. Again, it's self-protection, and it is a lack of trust, a loss of control. Are they suspicious of why you're telling them to let go of things, or why their kids are not only wanting them to let go of things, but also why do they have to move? Again, it goes back to self-protection. So again, looking at resistance, let's try to reframe that. And we're going to do another poll. So when you encounter resistance from clients, what's the most common thing you hear or see? It could be, I may need this someday. There we go. There we go. Uh, Someone gave it to me. My grandmother gave me that to me for my graduation. I paid good money for that. It cost a lot. Or sometimes I just want to keep it. So, what are you hearing most often? I'm really curious. Could be any of these things. I'm sure there's some other phrases too, and we'll get around to that. But these are I know for me, over 12 years of doing this, these are probably these are the most frequent things I've heard. So if you're all getting there and answering, that would be great. All right. So whenever we're ready, we can close that poll. Let's see the results. I may need this someday. Yeah, they're utilitarians, right? And it was a gift, all that sentimentality. It cost a lot. That's so interesting because I've run up against the cost thing. I remember an early client who was very upset that her 3 sets of bedroom furniture that were made of particle board that she paid quite a bit for 20 or 30 years ago were really not worth much at all. And she was very upset about that. That and her teacups were considered very valuable. And then there is I just want to keep it. So that's wonderful. Now, what I would love, thank you so much for taking that poll. I appreciate it. What I would love is if thinking of your own the phrases you've heard from your own clients about resistance, put some of those please in the chat. I would love to see those, especially ones that are, well, certainly if they're funny, ones that you're dealing with right now, and ones that were really memorable. I mean, who's dealing with a serious resistance situation right now? Please put that in the chat. That'd be great. And we'll review those once I'm done. I'll kind of go through this slide. And where did I just want to keep? There we go. I just want to keep it. Okay. So remember, their home and these items are caught up in their very identity, who they are. So if they think that you or the other family members want to cast those items aside, just talk, in their mind, I should say in their minds, cast them aside, get rid of their possessions. Well, in their own minds, what are you thinking of them as a person? Are they discardable? Is that what they're feeling like? Because let's face it, in our culture, with older adults, our culture as a whole ignores them. Obviously, we pay careful attention to them because we know how extraordinary they are. But the rest of our culture is very dismissive, and they can feel like they're being discarded along with their stuff. So that's why it's important to realize this. Are there any nonverbal cues you're noticing? They clam up over certain things, or they try to distract you when you head for the kitchen to start taking care of that. Pay attention to those nonverbal cues too. And in your own mind, reframe their stubbornness as a way to better understand. It's kind of like a key to unlock a better understanding of what their needs and priorities are. So at this time, what you want to do is get curious, not nosy, but curious. Now, if they do it, ask them where they got that item. And I'll go more into this in the next slide, but you want to start asking them questions. Get the stories behind things. Get them talking to you. And mind you, if they accuse you of being nosy, because sometimes that happens, you could just say something like along the lines of, oh, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to sound nosy. It's just that, and this is true for me, it's just that one of my favorite parts of this job is listening to people's stories. They inspire me, and sometimes I learn about history. I was a history major, or fascinating facts, things like that. And that's all it is. You don't have to tell me anything you don't want to. Put them at ease that way so they realize you really are genuinely curious. Again, this goes back to the compassion and the empathy. I like to say with my colleagues, like we're all friendly nerds who can't sit still because we love to listen, we're curious, want to learn, and we like to get stuff done. So think of it that way. All right, so let's go to the chat. I've got to open the chat now. I didn't mean to stop sharing. Sorry about that. Let me go back. There we go. But I do want to see what's going on in the chat. There we go. Okay. That was my late wife's. Yeah, that's rough. I had a client with 3 baby cribs and 0 grandchildren. Okay, that's fascinating. My grandmother would roll over in her grave if I gave this away. I don't think so, but that's okay. This is so important. Oh, it's from my trip to Egypt, and it's so beautiful. Most of my clients love to share the stories behind their belongings. Yeah, that's so great, Claudia. That's wonderful to hear. Okay, is there anybody here who wants to volunteer, especially if you're dealing with a particularly recalcitrant client right now who's difficult? Who wants to volunteer? You can raise your hand or what have you, because we can all kind of work together and talk it through. Somebody wants to volunteer. Come on. What about Robin? How about you? My grandmother would roll over in her grave if I gave this away. Would love to know how you're dealing with that. Heather, are you able to unmute Robin?
Oh, I can do that on my end
Oh,
here.
Cesar, thank you. Cesar, thank you.
Yep. Let's see here. All right, Robin.
Are you there?
Uh, there you go. Welcome.
Robin. Robin?
Yes, can you hear me?
I sure can. Welcome. So let's talk.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I misspelled mine.
Oh,
It's
that's
been a
okay.
long, it's been a long day. It's late here in
Okay.
Chattanooga. I'm on the East Coast. I think that happens a lot. Or my friend such and such gave me this as a gift. They would just die if I did something to it. And we talk through with them a lot, very compassionately and patiently, about letting this go isn't going to make you lose the memories of this person. You'll still have all those memories, but I kind of frame it in, if you can get them to shift into thinking, you've enjoyed this, or your grandmother's enjoyed this, your mother, it's been enjoyed by people, and don't wouldn't it be great if you could find someone else who would then be able to take this and use it and enjoy it? And if you can
Yeah.
get their mindset to shift on that, it really changes everything.
That's so true, and that's beautiful. I love that. I also will say things like, things were made, they exist. Things exist to be useful. If
Mm-hmm.
something is just sitting there not being used, then it needs to find somebody who will be its user. And it's not meant to sit there, and your grandmother used it and loved it, and I'm sure she would love somebody else to love it as much as she did. Sometimes it's almost giving what is it? I can't talk today. Anthropomorphizing the item. In other
Mm-hmm.
words, thinking of it as almost a living creature and saying it wants to be used. And
And
sometimes,
usually these items are things that they have not used in a long time.
exactly,
And
if they,
but they
yeah,
just keep it because they feel they've moved it from place to place. They just feel like they can't let it go. And if you can get them to make that shift, it really does change their thinking. It's just you got to be really patient getting them to look at it that way.
the compassion and empathy, right?
I like how you also said it's a lot of people can have empathy and compassion for a short period of time. To work day in and day out with somebody doing this on an extended time frame is taxing.
It
And
is, it's
everybody
very,
who is that could be very nice people, but to be able to continue that even when they're looking at this going, this is totally illogical. What is their problem? It's hard.
yeah. And it's having that patience, right, to keep talking with them. And especially in the beginning, so much of it is about building trust. Thank you so much, Robin. I really appreciate your being the guinea pig. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you. But it is about building that trust, especially because we are hoarding specialists at Clear Home Solutions. And so, especially if it's a fiduciary or someone else who's paying for it, we sometimes have to explain, look, the first session or so, you may not see much go out in the way of trash or set aside for donations because we have to build up that trust. And once they realize that we respect them and that we're not just going to arbitrarily throw things away or boss them around or tell them they're horrible, both in terms of their items are horrible and they're horrible. We're not going to do that. That's not who we are. Then once they build that trust, then we can make so much more headway. It's just again that compassion and empathy. And clearly, Robin, you have that in spades. All right, so we're talking about getting curious. So ask them questions. things that need to be used. What or how are you going to use it? Or what did you use it for? What did your grandmother use it for? Do you cook? Oh, what do you use this item for? And given that I'm not much of a cook, I often have asked that question. When did their grandmother give it to them? If they're talking about cost, how much did it cost back then? Or if they have 27 photos for one wall, ask them where they plan on hanging each photo. Because it's being kind and be kind, be gentle, be sincere, but also helping them be realistic. And again, the compassion, the empathy. And also, when you're asking them about stories, if they start to tell stories, really listen in and ask them more questions about it. For example, I once had this wonderful client named Rose. I have a lot of stories about Rose. One of my favorites is that she and her husband did a lot of traveling, and she loved to collect very colorful ceramic pitchers, as in Pitchers, that you pour from. And she had so many. And looking at the collection, it was like a combination of confetti and fireworks with all the colors. But I asked her, because where she's moving, she couldn't take them all. And I said, pick your favorite 12, hoping she'd get down to 20, and then we could narrow it down to 15. Well, when I next saw her, she'd gotten it down to 12. And I could look at each of them and see what a work of art they were. And so it was great because to kind of reinforce her good choices, I had her tell me stories about each of them. And it was just remarkable. So asking those stories, I'd love to hear the story behind this. Let them know that these stories and therefore their lives and tastes and choices have had meaning and continue to have meaning. Because sometimes just by telling that story, they can find a way to let things go because you've listened to them. Someone else now knows the story, and that story they won't be forgotten, and nor will the story. So sometimes, especially in the beginning, to kind of coax them out if they're really shy, you can share your own story, a story you have briefly about something that maybe your parent, grandparent had, or a story they told you and how much it meant to you. And then that sometimes can help them open up. So one of the things you're working toward is finding the pathway from no to yes. And I mean like a guarded no. And you want to guide them to a comfortable, even sometimes satisfying, very satisfying yes. Yes to letting go of items they won't use going forward, and letting go of items that they either won't use or that don't delight their eye anymore, like artwork or photos or certain knickknacks. As you all know too well, this is a big part of your job. But even if you can lead them from no to yes when it comes to an old armchair or that third set of china they have, then you're also helping them ease into the yes of moving forward in their lives in whatever direction they're headed, whether it's to assisted living, they're just downsizing, moving closer to their other family. And, it may take a bit of time to get them to feel comfortable. That's normal. Remember, when you first start working with them, you're basically a stranger coming in at an overwhelmingly emotional time to do something that they're afraid of doing and probably are very loath to do, but it needs to get done. And so, what you need to start getting a sense of as you're working with them is their primary needs. So, this is something like medication. If somebody has acid reflux, making sure the head of their bed is raised up, just very practical items. Priorities. What matters most to them? Does family matter most? So they're going to love their family photos and probably photo items. Do they love food and cooking? That's important too. So they will probably have some specialty kitchen items they want. How about sports? There may be some memorabilia that they really want to keep. They may have lots of it. And so figuring out what they want really matters to them, that goes to the likes and the dislikes, specific things like certain ball games they attended or chocolate or the color red. Those are the specific things when you're thinking about likes and dislikes. So that's what you're starting to collect, that evidence, those ideas, the things that matter to them that really shape their personality. So that when you're trying to help them downsize and you hit up against resistance of any kind that we've already been talking about, you have tools that you can use. And the cool thing is they're all on your phone or theirs, because sometimes just by preserving their items in one way or another, like digitally, when you can preserve those items and their stories and their memories, they feel safer with you, working with you, trust your judgment more, and also feel better about letting go of something. And again, it's trying to find out what's most important to them. You can take photos, encourage them to get a digital frame, and just let all those photos of all those beautiful items glide by. Take videos, show them telling the story. You can also just take an audio recording of them telling the story. And then there's a wonderful online platform that I'm just crazy about called artifacts.com. And Artifacts is built to basically it's built to be the family museum of memories. So you can upload these photos of these keepsakes and the videos and the audio with all the stories, or just write up the stories. And you can invite family members and those close to you to come and see them. So artifacts.com, it's a great resource. I highly recommend it. And as you're going through these things and recording them and documenting them, this is a great opportunity to start talking to them, start easing into kind of a larger framework and picture to find out you're starting to find out what's most important to them, and start asking, what do you want to outlast you? What imprint do you want to leave with the world? And what do they want their legacy to be? Legacy is a very important word. Sit with that word for a moment, legacy. It carries a lot of emotional weight on its own. And it's one that legacy isn't something that's ephemeral, like a china cup that can break or a sweater that can tear. Legacy runs much deeper. That's what you leave behind to let people know who you really were at your core, and also the family that came before them. If you haven't watched on PBS the show Legacy List with Matt Paxton, I highly recommend it. Matt's amazing. And in each episode, he works with the family to find the legacy items that are important to them. And the thing is, they don't need to be that many items. What tells the most important stories of who you are and who your family's been? And so this is something, once you've been working with them for a little bit, you can start to focus on, because it just runs so deep. And legacy is a gift to those who'll come after you, to those who'll come after our clients. That's what to think about. Now, mind you, legacy isn't really necessarily what you lead with when you first start working with them, because you need to have a sense of who they are and what matters to them. And also to have built some trust with them, because this is a big, weighty topic to discuss. Which items will be the monuments they want to leave behind? What items tell the story of their family's history, their own history and those who came before them? And keep in mind that their choices may change a bit as you work with them, and that's fine. Great thing is now they're focused on the bigger picture, and they're focused on something positive. Now, you've been working and working, and you're showing all this compassion and empathy. The trick is, at the same time, you have a job to do. So you have to keep things marching forward. So sometimes when you're getting stuck, there's some emotion involved. There is emotion and sentiment involved, but sometimes there are other ways to move things forward. Because now at this point, you have a much stronger sense of what matters to them. So, for example, we worked with a client, God, this is years ago, early in the days of my company, and she basically loved everything she had. She especially loved her clothes. I know we've all encountered that many times in our careers. And so, but she had to downsize a lot. And so we went to the place she was moving to and we measured the curtain rung. And we went back to her place, and some of you may have done this already, where we measured out that space on her own curtain rod rung where she was staying, her rung, and we marked it with a piece of colored tape, and it said, we can't go past here because it won't fit in the closet. And that ended up working. So you can talk about space. Will it fit? Let's talk about the item's state. It may look like trash to you or to family members or whatever, but they want to keep it. Now, the thing is, people have already probably told them that it's broken or it's torn, and they found a way to justify it already. I wish I could give credit to where I learned about this, but I'm not the originator of this idea, but using the term compromised can often work better than something like torn, repaired, it's trash, or something like that. It's compromised. Can't really tell you why that works better, but it's another like word in your verbal toolkit you can try. Or and also humor is great. The memory of this beautiful dress lives on, but it's got rips or tears or what have you, but it's compromised. And because of that, it's kind of given its notice. It deserves a rest. It deserves to kind of go on a permanent vacation. A little humor goes a long way sometimes. Also, you can always use the deadline. We have to move you by the end of the week. That can work too. So keep all of that in mind to keep them moving forward efficiently. Those are some tools you can use. Now, let's talk about how to speed them up in a different way. And part of that is that keep in mind loss of control is a deadening feeling. We've all unfortunately felt it at one point or another in our lives. So by building their confidence, you're reassuring them in a sincere way. And that, again, it makes them feel better about their decisions. Now, be sincere. Don't shine them on, because let me tell you, older adults have a BS meter that is so finely tuned. So you can always find something that you can sincerely compliment them on. And so these are some phrases I've used. Yours is especially with like a hoarding situation, it's like, oh my God, it's horrible. And we'll just say yours is a much easier situation that I'm usually dealing with. So thank you for that. Especially if they're wonderful. You're so easy to work with, or I enjoy your company so much. This is just wonderful. I'm honored to be doing this with you. You live such a remarkable life. And also, when they start making those tough decisions, let them know you appreciate it. I really respect that decision you made. I think it was a really smart one, and I know it wasn't easy. We all get better at making decisions and we get better at making them more fluidly when we feel confident. And also when someone believes in us and what we're doing. And that's a real gift you can give to them because, again, as you know, they are feeling overwhelmed. So if you're letting them know you believe in them, oh, what a difference that can make. Okay, so you're having a great rapport with the client, and then something called family dynamics start to happen. So this is another poll. So Cesar, stand by. Stand by. Let's go. We're ready for this. So in your work, which type of family conflict comes up most often? Is it the parent versus the adult child? Are there spouses disagreeing with one another? Is it siblings who are at war? Or are extended relatives or even neighbors getting involved? I'm really curious to see what you all run up against the most. Because I think, one time or another, I know I certainly in my company, we've run up against all of these. Taking a little sip of tea here because I'm talking so much. All right, wonderful. Because up to this point, we've been focusing on dealing with the older adult as our clients, or if someone has passed away, the executor, or the person I call the DA in the family, the designated adult, the sibling who's always the responsible one, the adult kid who makes all those decisions. Okay, let's see the result of the poll. So now I really want to talk about these family dynamics. Yeah, parent versus adult child. Spouses. Yeah, interesting. Those are very close together. Some with siblings. And again, a 0 for extended relatives. Well, that's a good thing because that can really get complicated. All right, great. Thank you for answering all that. That's fantastic. All right, so let's talk about dealing with these other family members. All right. So let me get this moving forward. There we go. So let's talk about first, if it's a parent, find out the why behind the conflict. Usually it's best to speak with each of them separately. Find out what the complaint is. My father always did this since I was 5 years old. And the father or mother will say, well, he's always been this way. He was really irresponsible. And, maybe in his teenage years he was, but now he's a very successful person. Or maybe it's the opposite. He used to be such a star in high school and now there's a drug habit or something like that. So find out what's going on and just try to listen for any common ground or shared values or, some glimmer of positivity that is there of how they feel about one another. That can help. And remember with the adult children, remind them it's about what their parent wants. Because unless there's a guardian or a conservator involved, or as I say, somebody's passed, Our client is the older adult client, no matter who's paying for it. That's part of our ethical code. And so it really is about what they want. These are their mementos from their life that tell their stories. So it's really their decision. And this is a cardinal rule with me. I actually put it in my book. I wrote a book called How to Move Your Parents and Still Be on Speaking Terms. And if your parent says, I want you to have this, or they want to give it to the grandchildren or something, just please say yes. Just say yes. Because, and if the parent ever questions what you did with it, you can just let them know that they gave it to you. And so now it's in your possession, it's your item, and you are allowed to do with it whatever you want to do with it. So that means you might use it yourself. You might give it to someone who would actually use it and enjoy it the way the parent did, your mom or dad did. And sometimes it's donating it. Again, somebody can use it. And sometimes it's just trash and you can throw it away. But the point is, they gave it to you. It's now yours and you can do with it what you will. The point about saying yes is with every time you say no, you get into a disagreement. Their feelings are hurt. It slows everything down and makes everyone miserable within the family. So just say yes. If it's a spousal conflict, and that was the majority of you answered that these are the biggest conflicts you have to deal with, of course, it's trickier. And again, stories can sometimes help. Again, finding out the why behind the conflict and listening for any common ground, shared values. Sometimes you can do this together. Sometimes it's, listening to each of them apart from one another. Ask what a decision would be that looks fair to both of them. Now that it may differ, but at least you have an idea. They've each thought about when you're thinking about something that's fair, it kind of automatically puts you in the position of having to think about the other person and what they want and need. So that's a good way to put it to them. And again, acknowledge how overwhelming this is. And it's a lot of these couples, have been together for decades. So sometimes asking them, how they've gotten through challenging times before, because it makes them think of their history together. And, maybe there's a little something that they may say that might be helpful to move forward in this conflict. And then siblings and relatives or other relatives, especially after someone has passed on. And we all know this can get very, very complex because of all the deep grief involved. Now, some things to bear in mind. You are not a licensed therapist. So healing any of these rifts within families is up to the family members or their therapists, not you. You're not trained for it. And you can say that to them if you need to. So just accept that you cannot and should not try to heal the family rifts that have survived through the decades. Use the same methods that I listed before. Listen carefully, listen for common ground, shared values. Now, in this case, after somebody has passed, focus on the executor because they're the ones legally in charge of adhering to the deceased's wishes. And avoid allowing anybody else to try to triangulate the conflict. So triangulating conflict means they try to use you to manipulate the other person. And this can happen actually in spousal conflict as well. In other words, rather than trying to discuss it with their sibling, they actually talk to you and say, well, tell them XYZ. Don't you think they should do that? Tell them they have to do that. That is not only an effective way to work, it's also going to be just dangerous because they start pointing fingers at you as the problem. So you want to just explain that it's not your job or your place to influence the executor one way or another on behalf of someone else. You're there to keep the peace, keep it calm, and get the job done. Let them know you're willing to listen, but they shouldn't make the mistake of thinking you're taking their side in whatever conflict they have. They need to talk to the other person about it. So that's very important to not triangulate the conflict. You'll find this too. This happens with your colleagues. It happens with friends and family members. It's better to make sure that you are talking to the person you're in conflict with, and also that anybody who has conflict, they can talk to you about it, but instead of taking sides, say you need to talk to them about that and solve it together. So let's talk more about your own mindset. So no matter how difficult it gets, please remember this most of all, as you guide them through their acreage of memories. They may yell at you, but it's not about you. I think you already know this. Their rage, their confusion, their frustration. It's just not about you or what you're doing. I mean, unless you're really incompetent, and I don't think anybody on this call is, or you wouldn't be on this call, you wouldn't be listening to this Zoom meeting. It really all goes back to fear, loss of control, and grief. It's about trying to get to that deeper issue, try to help them touch that deeper issue, listening to the stories, saying, I know this is hard. How are you feeling? I mean, I know the move's coming up. What are you thinking about? How are you sleeping? Don't try to fix them though. Listen to them. They can fix themselves. Be genuine and sincere about listening to them and hearing their stories, especially when you're being curious. And listen to learn. Don't listen to assume. Don't assume the answer. You're listening to learn, not to figure out how can you use that answer to get what you want or what somebody else wants, because that's disrespectful. But really listen to learn about them and what their wants and needs are. You can certainly question what their choice, how they're making their decision, not by saying, no, that's not the right decision, but rather, okay, so just so I know, and that's another great phrase, just so I know, I'm just curious. So why are you choosing to do that instead of this? These will keep your sanity. Just especially that first point. It's not about you. It's about a much larger issue. And you're there to be their guide. And your reward in this wonderful industry we're in, all these emotions are a trade-off because they can be exhausting, they can slow things down, and they can put you behind schedule. But they also elicit such memorable stories, moments that fill your heart and ultimately make this career unlike any other. And for me, and I think for you, or you wouldn't be doing this, it's so satisfying. We're not building fidget spinners. We all, as humans, we all want to carry on, to leave some imprint on the world, to leave a useful legacy behind. And the great thing is when you're working with the people going through this, you get to carry all those amazing stories within you. Now, mind you, there are lots of stories that I have forgotten, if I'm being really completely honest, but there are so many I remember and always will. And I am so, so grateful for that. And I'm also very grateful to you for spending time with me today. I hope you got some great ideas. And please, in the chat, let's talk to me about is something learn today, or that maybe you thought of during this discussion. One thing you're going to try that's new for you, one new takeaway. I'd love to find out what that is. And in case you're curious, there is my book, How to Move Your Parents and Still Be on Speaking Terms. And then my company is Clear Home Solutions. If you have questions, feel free to email me or call me. And I do have another company called AgeWiseAlliance.com, AgeWise Alliance. But it has been such a pleasure. And I would love to find out thank you for the hearts. I appreciate that so much. Let's see. Oh, Samantha, you struggle with collectors. Yeah, that's a collectible. Oh, and it's not artifacts.com. It's actually spelled without that second A. That's intentional. I think probably some other museum has artifacts.com. It's spelled artifcts.com. It's really wonderful. And I love that I'm glad you like the term compromise, Robin. That's wonderful. But yeah, the whole thing with collectors, I think as we all know, people who hoard never self-identify. If somebody calls me and says they're a hoarder, I know they're not. They probably just have some surface clutter. But when people call and say, well, I'm a collector and my family has a problem with that, then I know we might be dealing with a hoarding situation. And yet, Claudia, trying not to fix them and focusing on their legacy, right? Legacy is such an elegant word and just goes so deep. And that's why I'm so glad Matt named his show Legacy List, because it's so important. Who has any questions, or just you want to share a fun fact or a thought, or talk about how to work with people who say that's a collectible and figure it out? Where's a good place to get more training? I'm sorry, what?
I have a question for you, Marty.
Yes.
Can you hear me? I know that my volume was
Sure
weird in the
can.
beginning. I don't know if you guys can hear me okay now. Um,
No,
but
we're
you
not
can
getting any
hear me?
complaints. I can hear you fine. That's for sure. I
Perfect.
certainly can.
Okay. I'll just sit a little closer to the speaker. Um, memory issues. So if you're
Yeah.
in a home and you see some flags that may indicate memory issues, but then this is the question: have you ever been in that situation and found that family members that are maybe the spouse or power of attorney or closely involved are in denial about the memory issues? So there's
Oh, well,
kind of, do you know what I'm saying? Like a
yes,
conflict
I
there
do.
within the family with that.
I do. And that's tricky because, again, we're not licensed therapists. We can't diagnose, but we can certainly talk to people and certainly take that into account in our own work when we're working with a client who appears to have MCI, mild cognitive impairment, or maybe something more severe. Being patient with that, trying to schedule your time with them between the hours of, say, 9 or 10 a.m. and 2 or 3 p.m. because of sundowning. They get exhausted, and so their memory actually gets worse later in the day.
Oh,
So being respectful of that, yes. So working during those earlier daylight out, like those midday daylight hours. You don't want to work for more than 4 hours or 5 hours with them because making decisions is so exhausting. Our brains use, I think it's something like 22% of our calories. That's why you feel exhausted, even if you've been sitting on your butt all day working, but you've been writing up things and making decisions, and you're exhausted at the end of the day because your brain's tired. It's eaten up all those calories. Um, you can mention something. You could certainly suggest one way to go about it is suggest, well, one thing you might even go to a doctor like a neuropsychologist and just get a baseline. It's good to know. Do you know if there's anything that runs in the family, go to a neuropsychologist, do some tests, get a baseline. So just in case. So you can do that. But when they're in denial, again, we're not there to fix things. We're not licensed or trained to diagnose. It may just be that they're just really fatigued, or, sometimes it could be a UTI.
oh wow.
It's really weird. Yeah, UTIs can be well, they're nasty anytime. But when you're older, it gets more complicated because, yeah, you exhibit signs of dementia, and UTIs can quickly turn, no, I don't want to say quickly, but they can turn into kidney disease. So you want to pay attention to those. Make sure everybody's hydrating well. That's another thing. I mean, I suppose that's something you could keep an eye out for. If somebody seems to have memory lapses frequently, make sure they're having enough water. They're getting enough water and again, or whatever they like to drink, iced tea. I love a good iced tea. And just prepare yourself mentally and emotionally for having them ask the same question 12 times in an hour. That's okay. Again, it's not about you, it's about the disease. And if you see other family members or people around you getting frustrated, just take them aside and say, you know what? She's not trying to drive you crazy, really. It's just the disease. She really doesn't remember. The cool thing is, so you answer it the first time, and then the same question gets asked 5 minutes later. You don't have to think because you already know the answer. So just say it in a cheery way. And then the third and the fourth time, I once had one, it was during a consultation, and it was a daughter and mother. They were lovely. And the mother asked me 12 times in an hour, oh God, I know we're moving. When are we moving? And how are we going to do this? And so each time I said, you know what? That's why I'm here. So you're going to move a week from Thursday. Today's Tuesday. So in about 10 days, 9 or 10 days, we're going to move you and we're going to take care of everything. And every single time after I said that, she says, oh my God, thank you so much. You're so wonderful. So I got to be told I was wonderful 12 times in an hour, and that was pretty cool. So again, reframing that. I mean, it's not really a resistance, but reframing these things because she was stressed
Yeah.
out and she did have moderate dementia. Let's see. Somebody asked about getting more hoarding training. The Institute for Chronic Disorganization, they have some great training on hoarding. So, would you mind looking that up, Heather, and putting a link? I don't have my browser open. I have all kinds of PowerPoint stuff
Which
open.
one? ICD?
Institute for Challenging Disorganization. Sorry.
I just came from their conference. It was fantastic. Yep, I can
Yes.
put a link to them in
And so,
here.
as you know, they have great hoarding training. Also for clients with ADHD, if you want to specialize in that, stuff like that. So that's where I got my hoarding training. So that's what I really recommend. So thank you for finding that link, Heather. Let me look. Good. Okay. Oh, yeah. Hildy, dealing with the DNR. That's not unusual. You know, the trick with people who are now in their late 80s and 90s is they survived the Depression and World War II, and they were the deprivation generation. I mean, my parents were that, and man, they were not allowed to be a burden. And they also were, you know, they just didn't dare talk about mortality. So that's tough. And again, you can't make them do it. Um, it's tough. But he dreads, if he's dreading updating it, he tries updating his outdated will. You know, one of the things, if you're in touch with their adult children, one of the things you can do, you recommend to the kids, is to have them say, you know what, I'm updating my will. And I just wanted to kind of get your take on it. And also, because you're my dad, you know, you never know. I could, you know, God forbid, I could walk out of here and get hit by a car. So I want you to know what I'm doing. And sometimes by that adult child starting to do it themselves and sharing that openness and vulnerability with their parent can get that parent to feel more comfortable, feel like they can trust them. I remember when I talked to my own dad about it. My mom died when she was only 58. She was young, but dad made it to 90. He never remarried. She was the love of his life. And I remember I really didn't want there to be any acrimony when he passed away because he and I were very close. And I thought, I got to talk to him. I'd read an article in the New York Times that you have to talk to parents about the will. And so I picked a time when I was visiting him. And the way I went about it, this goes with compassion and empathy, thinking from his point of view as a Depression era kid. I did, and so we were out for a walk. I said, Dad, there's something I really have been wanting to talk to you about. And let me just preface this by saying, I don't care who gets what, but I just want to ask and make sure that your will, your estate plan, every I is dotted and every T crossed, because I'm going to miss you so much and be so grief stricken. I don't want to have to be fighting anybody over whatever. And he said, I didn't know how he'd respond. And he almost seemed relieved to talk about it. He said, oh, well, you're each getting, even though I said, I don't need to know who's getting what. But he said, oh, no, each of you, there are three daughters. And he said, each of you is getting an equal part, you three girls. And we ended up having this really beautiful conversation. And indeed, he had everything in place. And I don't know, I think it was a later visit, maybe the next one. He actually called me over and showed me where his estate plan was in his files. There's the bank accounts. Here's the safe deposit box key. And first of all, I'm getting chills. It's so weird. I'm getting goosebumps. I say this. I was so honored and touched that he trusted me and he knew I wouldn't go in and look at anything or meddle with it until he passed. But at least I knew where it was, so that when the time came, we knew where things were. So maybe those are some thoughts that you can pass on, maybe if there are adult children involved. What is a graceful approach to clients who do not have children or a lot of family members where the leaving a legacy conversation might not be appropriate? That's a good thought. But people still want to leave an imprint behind. I'm brainstorming here. Well, then it becomes about in their estate plan, who do you want to give this beautiful thing to? What part of your legacy do you want to pass on to this friend? Or do you want to donate somewhere? Do you want, for example, we've had a number of clients who want to donate clothing, especially to the Discovery Shop, which is a nonprofit organization that works with cancer, people who are dealing with cancer. And so that's their legacy. So maybe find places to donate, that represent issues that they feel very concerned about. I hope that helps. If I think of anything else while we're on, I'll throw it out there. Or if anybody else has an idea, please put it in the chat.
Real quick, I'm going to let everybody know the second code word is feelings. So the first one was family. The second one is feelings. There's two, and I'll put my email as well in here for you guys, okay?
Wonderful. And Jenny, I love what you said about schools or camps they went to, industry groups they were part of. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Okay, wonderful. Other questions? Yes, thank you, Heather. I'll put mine there too, just in case. I should put my glasses on. Oh, it would help if I'm glad you can't see how much I'm misspelling things. There we go. I got it out. There we go. All right. Any other questions? You guys have been so wonderful. And these were great questions in the comments. And Robin, thank you for volunteering. I appreciate that. And if you end up at the NASM conference, please come up and introduce yourself and say hi.
Yes, look for us, look for Maxold. I will be there, Cesar will be there. We've got, oh my gosh, anybody who has used our new smart cataloging app, our engineer Daniel will be there, and so will our CEO Chris, and of course Angie will be there as well, one of our customer success account managers who many of you know well also. So a bunch of us will
It'll be Oh, it'll be so much fun. Okay, Samantha, one last thing. So about legacy, my own mom doesn't have much family left. So I talked to her about setting up a memorial garden in a public space, and she loved that idea. Again, this goes back to being curious, listening to their stories, and really thinking about who they are and what would matter to them. Oh, good, Robin. I look forward to it. Oh, good. You're on the so one of the most popular presentations every year at the NASM conference is the Ask the Senior Move Manager panel. Oh, fantastic. Congratulations. Heather, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so grateful to Max Sold for giving me this wonderful opportunity. I appreciate it.
Well, we love hosting you. We love your presentations. Everybody does. So
Aw.
thank you. This is recorded. Of course, Marty, you'll get the recording, and everybody else who registered will automatically get it. And we do all of our monthly webinars, just so you guys know, we do keep the recordings. They are in YouTube. We can get you access to them easily if you aren't sure where to find them. But thank you, Marty, so much. And Cesar, thank you for helping to host as well.
Yes. Thank you, Cesar.
Not a problem. And sorry, just one more thing. You're gonna get a survey once this auction closes. Please take like 2 minutes to fill it out, and it will help us for our future webinars. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.